Welcome to the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. This is your host, Jackson Millan, the Wealth Mentor, helping business owners create financial freedom faster by mastering the language of money. Want to see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom? Complete our 40-point financial performance scorecard at wealthhealthcheck.com.au. That's wealthhealthcheck.com.au. The average score for most business owners is 18 out of 40. So complete the scorecard now and see how well you're tracking towards financial freedom. G'day guys, this is Jackson Millan, the Wealth Mentor, and we're here for another episode of the Financial Freedom Secrets Show. And I've got Connor Inch here today to talk all about video and how do we use video in a leverage way in order to grow and scale your business. This is a strategy that we've used personally and is one of the biggest contributors to the growth in our business. However, I see so many service-based business owners shying away from the idea of getting in front of the camera, and there actually are some far easier ways to go about it that can be really effective. So I'm excited to have Connor on the show to share some of his genius. So, mate, thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for having me on here.
Mate, it was good that we got to catch up face-to-face last week in Busselton. I must say, it would have been easier for me to get to another country, but it was good to catch up face-to-face. So, mate, for those of you who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you, your story, and kind of what got you to where you are, mate.
Yeah, okay. Well, I imagine like a lot of people who are listening to this kind of have always dabbled around with entrepreneurship, and I'll give you the short version. But I've literally started so many different things, starting from a young age when I used to sell eggs to my neighbors. You know, we had chickens, selling eggs, and then doing car washing for the neighbors and doing a really bad job, but still getting paid for it because I was little. Moved to Australia about 10 years ago, and that just carried on. So I started a mobile teeth whitening business purely because I saw an opportunity there. And then I didn't enjoy that, so I swapped that in, and I started a topless waitering agency, which, side note, you think someone who would start a topless waitering agency would be super confident. I wasn't, but that helped me become confident, and I ended up having 5 guys on the books, booked out every weekend. First proper business, serious one, I guess, was personal training. Through personal training, I discovered copywriting, and that's where my career kind of in marketing kind of started. So I did copywriting, worked with some huge brands over the years. And I always noticed this trend. I'd done a lot of script writing. I always noticed that people were pretty bad at reading scripts. And it was always hard to capture the right information in a script for people. You know, if you're writing it for someone else, it's hard to get their thoughts and their feelings, no matter how good you are at copywriting. And that kind of led me to what I do today, which is help people essentially create video content that's authentic, helps them if they're not very confident on camera, and has a much more natural feel that connects with their audience, because we don't use scripts. So that's my decades journey in about 30 seconds.
Fantastic, mate. Now, I'm sure the people who are listening are going to be interested. Did you get your top off, mate, at the topless waitering, or were you just facilitating?
No, I was very much in the trenches, doing stuff that made me very uncomfortable. And I won't go into too much detail because no one wants to hear about that. But let's just say, yeah, women know how to party when there's a topless waiter around.
Fantastic. Lots of woo-woo girls, eh?
Oh, yeah. Lots of middle-aged women as well. So, yeah,
fantastic, mate. I'm sure there's plenty of stories that we could share. But let's get back into the topic. Now, the interesting thing about video, mate, is that particularly in this day and age, I think most people realize that they need video to cut through because it's a great way to build relationship. However, the comparison to the likes of your Alex Hormozis and all of these big names that are probably in most industries these days, who are so confident, so polished, have these amazing videos. And I see, particularly in our client base, people say, oh, I can never do that. And they just, it's like that typical comparison is the thief of joy. So, mate, is that common? Are these typical of most business owners that you speak to that are just fearful of getting in front of the camera and looking stupid?
Absolutely. That's probably the number one fear that people have. I think it's up there just below public speaking. Public speaking is supposedly the number one fear I think that people have. I think they fear it more than death. So shooting yourself on camera and then putting that footage out there for the world to see is very scary for a lot of people. I absolutely see that all the time. And what a lot of my clients notice is they're not as bad as they think they are. But more importantly, is Alex Hormozi and those guys that we compare ourselves to didn't come out of the gate as they are today, as what you see today. For context, right, I can shoot a video, my own content very easily, fairly confidently. I'm not saying I'm the best presenter in the world, The first video I did for my business, the video editor asked me to reshoot it because it was too bad, and it took me about 6 hours to do one video. Just to give you context, it was like a 2 minute like mini VSL thing, and he literally, in the kindest way possible, he was like, "Do you think you could do this again and maybe not stare at the camera so much and not say and ah so much?" So, um, it's like anything. The first time you go to the gym, for anyone that goes to the gym, you're terrified. You know, big people all around. It's intimidating. You don't know what you're doing. You're wobbly. You're all over the place. You do the reps and sets. You put the hours in, and you get more comfortable and more confident.
Yes.
And I guess the way I see myself is a bit like a personal trainer for people who are doing video content because they're there with you, guiding you and helping you.
And it's so funny, mate. I remember my first video that I did that I posted online, and I wish I didn't delete it, but I did because it was so cringy. And it would be the perfect case study to show all of these people who feel this way what I was like back then. Because it's like that 10,000 hours, right? Like I've been doing content for 15 years.
Yeah.
So anything you do for 15 years, you can expect that you get pretty good at it. But it's just that initial step, which is why I love your system so much, mate. So how do you help your clients overcome this fear of having to read a script or prompt themselves to do the videos? And how's your process different?
Yeah, great question. It's different because we don't use scripts. So there's more of a human element. You're actually, what my clients do is they meet once a month with me virtually. So I've got clients in the US, I've got clients in Europe and Australia, obviously. Um, and they meet with me. So they're talking to a person. So that removes the pressure of having to read the script, of, fumbling their words, looking at the script, trying to read the teleprompter, trying to keep up, and the stiffness that people have when they read a script. And also, I'm there, I remove the pressure from them. So usually for a new client, for example, I'll get them to screw up intentionally at the start because they see that literally nothing happens when they screw up because we just edit it out. You know what I mean? There's literally no stakes on our calls whatsoever. The worst that happens is maybe the call goes for an hour instead of 45 minutes. You know what I mean? It's like that's the worst that happens.
Sure.
And I'm just talking to them and asking them questions, and every now and then I might help them with a hook. So I said, "Oh, that what you said there was really good, and that could actually work as a hook. Can you just say it like this instead?"
Makes sense.
And then, yeah, we can take that bit of footage and put it at the start of the clip, and they've just created a really good hook in a natural way. So I think it's just removing, the scripts, but also the fear because it's a lot easier to talk to a person. Like one of the key things I noticed was people were really good on podcasts. So they come on shows like this, talking away, they're great at what they do. You really hear their expertise and their passion. But then as soon as they start shooting their video content, they're just stiff, awkward. They're staring at the camera like deers in the headlight. So by having that human there and almost creating that podcast experience, it kind of removes a lot of the barriers and fear that people have.
Beautiful. It's a simple system, mate, because it's so interesting that they could talk to somebody at a bar or at a barbecue or whatever for hours about what they do.
Yeah.
Yet as soon as they're prompted off the cuff to almost do this kind of a cappella video, it is definitely that deer in the headlights. So I think the other common objection that I would suspect is that, well, I don't have anything different or interesting to say. And I think this is one of my bugbears about the content space in this kind of day and age, is that it seems like thought leaders, in inverted commas, need to have a polarizing perspective. And that means that there's no room for people who are just doing the good old fashioned vanilla stuff that has always worked. What's your thoughts on that, Connor? Do you need to have an aggressive angle or perspective, or can you stick to your wheelhouse and the boring stuff?
Yeah, stick to your wheelhouse and the boring stuff because it's interesting to someone. Um, and look, if you have to go through and be a bit generic at first because you're finding your feet, just do it. Get it out the way. You worrying about being generic and boring, stopping you from shooting video content, you're never going to get to that more interesting content. And I always say people are interesting when they're talking about their experiences and their views on things. You don't have to be clickbaity and aggressive, like you said, or have really strong opinions. It could just be like, hey, this thing happened to me, and here's what I think about it. Or in my experience in 10 years of doing this thing, this is what I've noticed. Just your experience is what makes it unique. I actually say that to my clients. I'm like, some of the topics we'll cover on our recording session might be a little bit bland, but they're interesting when you give your perspective on it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's the human element, right? Because
Mm.
I think in business, particularly when I suspect most of your clients are service-based business owners, um, the service is fundamentally the same, right? Sure, there's going to be some businesses that do things better than others, but it's marginally better. And what this all comes down to is working with people that you resonate with and that you can have a meaningful connection. And you could say exactly the same thing as somebody else, but just because it's you delivering it, I suspect it's received very, very different.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at the whole context. So there's also things like body language and tonality, which has a big impact on the way people
Mm.
perceive things as well. But that's not to say if you're a monotone person, that's not to say you can't be interesting. I wouldn't say I'm particularly like wide on my range of tonalities that I use when I talk, but I can still be reasonably interesting, hopefully, so that most people aren't switching off on this podcast.
Yes, yes, mate. Yeah, and look, it's something that I had to work on, and because I do a lot of public speaking,
Yeah.
it's changing that. But that, once again, I think the great thing is that even if you do have generic content, I suspect that that then gives you more opportunity to then work on your delivery and work on the soft skills, and it just progressively gets better over time.
Yeah, exactly. Something's better than nothing. I would say that with a caveat, though, of don't just regurgitate other people's opinions that you've heard, because so many people do that in their content. It's like they'll hear a quote and they'll just regurgitate it, and it's not really their opinion. So something I learned from my friend Kath Riohorn, quick shout out to her to give her credit for this, is pass before you share an opinion online, just do a check with yourself. Do I actually believe this, or have I just heard like Chris, whatever his name is, Chris Williams or Alex Hormozy say this on a podcast, and I just think it sounds cool. It's like that
Yes,
saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. But that's
yes.
actually nonsense. The way I make my bed is very different to the way I do business. The way I, the way I handle my kids is very different to the way I handle clients. So, yeah, don't fall in the trap of just copying other people. Make sure that what you're saying is actually your own belief. And if it's not, modify it so it is your belief.
That's great advice, mate. I think that's fantastic. And I think that also flows into the fact that you don't need to have original ideas. Like even I, in my content, I'll hear somebody say something, and I'll be like, "Hey, I heard Alex Hormozy say this, and here's my perspective on it."
Yeah,
And
that's a sorry, carry on.
no, please, and you don't have to be that original.
There's a big misconception about creativity, and this is something I learned quite early on in copywriting. Is there's not really very many brand new ideas. Creativity is actually the accumulation of lots of ideas that you mix together and then put your own perspective on it. So the
Mm,
more world views and experiences you can get, the more creative you're going to appear. So if you're only getting input from one place, you're not going to be very creative. But if you're getting ideas and thoughts and perspectives from lots of different places and lots of different experiences, that's where creativity comes in. So you're taking one idea, taking another, bang, you've just got that's your new idea. That's kind of yeah, a misconception people have around creativity is that I'm not a creative
yes,
person. You can be, you're just
yeah.
not consuming enough.
I like to call it innovating, because I like to think that I'm not a very creative person, but I'm innovative. I'm good at taking existing stuff and making them better.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's once again a far more sustainable way because I see so many people try too hard with content and try and come up with all of these original ideas, and you just fatigue. And I think the important thing with content is the consistency over time is what makes what gets you the results, right? I don't think people can expect they're going to put up one video and they're going to skyrocket themselves to international fame and fortune, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I actually I try to stress to people as well not to focus too much on skyrocketing yourself and trying to go viral all the time. I know for a lot of people going viral is actually one of the worst things they can do in their business because um so a story of like a personal trainer who's a friend of a friend, he went viral and he just got shitty leads just filling up his calendar because it went viral to the wrong audience and just
Yeah,
absolutely exhausted by the end of the week, no sales, all his time gone. It was just a miserable experience for about 2 months straight for him. Um, Now, growing the audience with the right people, absolutely great idea. But trying to go viral for the sake of going viral to stroke your ego, there's very few niches where that's worth your time,
no,
unless you're selling, broad, make money online products or whatever. Then yeah, fair
sure.
enough. But probably not the kind of people we'd work with.
No, definitely
Um,
not.
yeah.
So, mate, let's talk about
Yeah.
the post production and the quality of the creative. What's your thoughts on that in this current day and age? Like, what's the level of production that we need? What should people kind of keep in mind when it comes to producing content and how that's kind of represented out in the ether?
Yeah, very good questions that I could talk a long time about, and I've changed my views on these multiple times. I think for a lot of brands, branding is very important. So therefore, the quality of the production, I think, does actually matter more than people think. However, don't let that stop you from, if you can't do that, don't let that stop you from putting your message out there because having something out there of quality substance, what you're saying, or is actually of substance, is more important than having it look pretty. If you can have
Yeah,
it look pretty, fantastic. So, and actually, we just recently adapted our services because I've been thinking about this a lot. We focused for a long time on really high production value, and now we've actually got an option for I don't want to say worse quality, but we focus less on the production value and more on being prolific, so getting more content out there more often. So we've got the two options. So for a lot of people, that branding, it does matter. Branding does matter, but I think especially when you're early on, or you're trying to go position yourself as more of an authority, like your personal brand, for example, I think just prolific content
Yes.
and saying good stuff actually matters.
Yeah, I think that matters most. Honestly, I think
Yeah.
I've kind of tested this because I'm a pretty rough around the edges person. I try and keep my content pretty rough around the edges too, and it tends to resonate. And look, there's still a level of production value that needs to be there. Audio's got to be good. The video's got to be
Yeah.
pretty sharp. Um, no wind noise, all of those kinds of things, and you've got to get to the point. And because people don't put up with waffling, right? And the attention span is so short these days that people just they're just swiping. As soon as if it's not for them, they know in the first second or two, and they're gone.
Yeah, absolutely. People will give you their attention if they find what you say interesting. But
Yes,
you've got that 1 or 2 seconds to grab their attention, and you want to grab the attention of the right people as well.
yes,
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think if someone's putting off because they can't make their videos look amazing, don't just get interesting stuff out there. Sometimes the best performing videos are the ones you take in your car and you've just had a random thought. You know, as long as you've got a reasonable smartphone, then you've probably got a good enough setup to start recording.
beautiful, love it, fantastic. So, mate, in terms of the role of content and an overall marketing strategy, for a lot of our clients and our audience, they've grown their expert businesses organically. And they're very, very good at what they do. They grow their business through word of mouth and referral. And as we know, that isn't a very reliable source because there are certain things that are outside of your control, right? And there are certain time periods where that pipeline dries up and there's nothing that you can do about it. So, video is a big part of this. Where does it fit in an overall marketing strategy for your clients? Do they use it solely as a way of generating leads, or is it just a part of a bigger machine? And what role does it play?
Yeah, great question. It's different for everyone. So I can't give a one size fits all answer for this. So I've got people who literally have never done paid ads and they're multi seven figure businesses and they get all of their leads from organic socials, where video does play a part, and they have literally attributed sales directly to X video, which is hard to do with organic, right? Because it's not like ads where you can say I got X amount of sales from X ad spend, but
Yes.
people have initiated a conversation because something resonated with them in the video. But then we've got other people who run advertising and also have this in the background. So, because I think it's only, let's say you're running ads, and don't quote me on the accuracy of this number, but it's only like 2 or 3% of people who see your ad at any one time are actually in a mental position to buy.
Yes.
A lot of people are going to go away, especially if they are like, I think a C personality type on the DISC personality test. They're going to go away and do their research. They're going to look into your
Mm.
brand. They're going to consume your content. They're going to follow you. And I think that's where video content can be really powerful. There are other as well brands I work with who actually use our organic content that we create for them and use that as a part of their retargeting campaigns for paid advertising. Um, Another really useful thing to do with videos is to drive people to take an action on your social profile. So perhaps we want to get them off socials and into email, for example, and start nurturing them on email on a list that we own where we're not necessarily affected by algorithms. So you might have a really good lead magnet that you push them towards. So there's lots of different ways you can leverage video. I think a lot of businesses can do very well with organic, but like you said, it can be unstable. But then if you are consistent with organic, it does add an element of stability and it kind of compounds as well.
Beautiful.
So you might have 90-day sales cycles where from when someone enters your world to buy from you, it might be 90 days, it might be 2 years. So
Sure.
you just keep putting it out and you're acquiring more of those people and it accumulates over time.
It's interesting. We've found exactly the same thing. Like for some people, they convert quickly, and some follow us for years. And it's
Yeah.
only that if you remain top of mind and relevant, that when they're ready to make a buying decision, that is going to ensure that you're at the top of the list. And if you had a sales interaction or they made an inquiry years ago, the likelihood they're going to remember that years later if you've had no touch points is very, very low. And I think that's a big role for business in terms of creating video content, and it pays massive dividends for us. So we highly advocate it.
Yeah,
So,
I'm the
mate,
same.
let's talk about the kind of 45-minute or an hour investment that you do with that client's interview. Typically, how many videos are they getting from that session?
So as I said, we're just kind of changing things at the moment, but the legacy, I'll talk about that, the way we've always done things. So 45 minutes, we create all the talking points and topics, so they don't even have to think about that. They turn up to the recording session, they pre-approve the topics, so we know which ones we're going to choose, because some might not be on brand, they might not fill that particular topic. We turn it into 12 videos, so that's 3 videos per week, roughly. But then we also offer the facilities to repurpose their existing long form content. So let's say they have been on podcasts over the last few months, and maybe they've had one video from that podcast. Well, we'll go through and we'll actually find highly clippable moments. So we offer 4 of those. It could be they've done a presentation on stage. It could be some sales training they've done. It could be even, so we work with some people in the construction industry, and they might just do like a client interview or a site walk around, and we'll tidy that up for them as well. So they get those. So they've got the 12 videos on our recording session, 45 minutes to an hour, the 4 repurposed videos, and then we create 4 graphics from the content of the recording session. So let's say we've talked about 3 ways to achieve X result. We'll reword that, repurpose it, tidy it up, and put it into like a carousel for Instagram. So 12 videos, plus 4 repurpose, plus 4 graphics, so 20 assets. So five days a week of posting.
Amazing. That's great. That's what businesses need, right? I think that's really that top of mind and relevant. And who can't find 45 minutes or an hour in order to do that kind of thing, right? And it's a month, right? It's not a big time investment to get all of this done for you. So, mate, who would you describe as an ideal client for you? What do they typically look like, and what makes them a good fit?
Yeah, great question. So when I launched, I thought I was going to be targeting fitness businesses because of my copywriting background, fitness background. I'd worked a lot there, but that actually changed pretty quickly once I got a client called Matt Smith. So Matt Smith is now my avatar, and he knows that. I've spoke about him plenty of times. He's the #1 advertiser in the roofing and home improvement space in the USA. That is my ideal avatar. So he's an expert. He's got something interesting to talk about. He has a personality, or at least has experience that he can talk about. So he's not a faker, a fraud, a pretender. He's very good at what he does, and he has a track record to prove it. Multi 6 to 7 to 8 figure business owner, and they have to have something high ticket or valuable for sale, because I want people to get an ROI on this, right? If you're selling $15 a month gym memberships, you're not going to get an ROI on this. And as much as this is branding, more branding, there is still an element of direct response to it. We do want people to take actions, and we want you to make money from these, right? So yeah, they've got their shit dialed in. They're subject matter experts, and they've got something high ticket for sale, whether that's a 5-10K program or like a retainer. Say for an advertising firm, it might be like a 5-6K a month retainer. I work with a high level copywriter. She's $4,000 a month minimum retainer. So they're the kind of people that we work with, but also
Perfect.
services, construction, electrical, those kind of people as well.
Beautiful. I think it makes a lot of sense. So, mate, if anybody's watched or listened to this and they want to get in touch and have a chat and see how you can help, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
I really like connecting with people on social media, because I like to talk to them first. So just my name on Facebook. Facebook's where I'm most active, Connor Inch, so CONNOR Inch. There is my website as well, multiplyMymedia.co. But yeah, honestly, just any of the social platforms. I've got quite an unusual last name, so there's not many people with my name. Yeah, I think social media is the best place to connect because we can have meaningful conversations.
Beautiful. We'll include all those links in the show notes. Now, kind of, if we had to leave the listeners with one last pearl of wisdom, what would that last pearl of wisdom be, mate?
Whoa, that's a tricky question. I think don't get in your own head too much about creating video content. Like just get the first ones done, get them out of the way because it becomes a lot easier after that. Your first video is probably going to be crap. But after that, it only gets better, right? You know, Jackson, yours, I think you said yours was pretty crap first time. Mine was terrible. Alex Hormozzi's would have been awful. Any of these gurus who you see, their first video would have been terrible. Get it done, post it, and you'll probably find that actually people don't really care that you weren't that good anyway. They're just grateful to hear from you.
I agree, mate. I know how valuable video has been for our business, and I know how valuable it can be for business owners who can do it and implement it, and particularly with a service like yours, implement it effortlessly. It just lowers the barrier to achieve the same results. So, mate, I love what you do. Guys, remember, a good idea in theory remains exactly that, just a good idea until you put it into practice. So make sure that you implement what you've learned on the show. Go and check out Connor and go and have a conversation if you'd like to get some additional help. Connor, thanks for making the time, mate, and look forward to catching up again soon.
My pleasure, mate. Thanks for sharing your time with me.
Catch you soon.
Cheers, mate.